Ever since my little brother died of a high fever while my mother was busy keeping her precious college junior company, I started cutting her out of all our family photos. When my teacher called my dad, deeply concerned after hearing me say my mom was dead and that I wanted my desk mate's mom instead, my dad just paused. Then he agreed with me. Yeah, she passed away a long time ago. At the school's family sports day, my dad saw me hand the janitor a $10 bill, asking her to be my mom for the afternoon. He did not stop me. Instead, he quietly slipped the woman another $200 to attend my parent-teacher conference. Whenever I needed a mother to show up, my dad would just let me buy one. It took my mother a long time to realize she hadn't heard from us. She finally canceled her endless meetings to pick me up from school, only for my teacher to frown and shut the classroom door in her face. Confused and irritated, she went straight home. The moment she opened the front door, she heard me talking to our building superintendent. My mom is dead. Do you want to be my new mom? Our living room wall was covered in framed photos of my award ceremonies. But the woman standing next to me and my dad in every single picture was a complete stranger. Kyle. Who the hell are these women standing next to you? Phoebe's voice was absolute ice. Her glare could have burned a hole straight through the glass frames. I didn't understand why she was so angry. I panicked, waving my little hands, trying to explain. The building superintendent wiped the sweat off her forehead. Sweetie, why would you say such things? Your mother is clearly still alive. She let out an awkward laugh and practically ran out of the apartment. Hearing that, Phoebe's mouth twitched with sheer rage. She did not even notice the expensive bakery cake she had brought slipping from her hands and smashing onto the hardwood floor. I haven't been home in 2 months and you two are telling people I am dead? Kyle, is this how you raise our child? Terrified, I rushed forward to shield my dad. Nobody taught me. Don't blame Daddy. I said it myself. Phoebe's face turned completely black. She began yanking the picture frames off the wall, raising her arm to smash them. Then she paused. Her eyes caught the engraved golden plaques on the frames. First place, regional champion. Her hands froze in midair. She looked down at me, her expression unreadable. I held my breath, waiting for her to explode. Phoebe had no idea that ever since she died in that other man's house 2 months ago, my dad had been secretly paying women to act as my mother for every single family event. Hearing the commotion, my dad walked out of the master bedroom. In just 2 months, he looked like a walking skeleton. His eyes were hollow, his steps unsteady. Seeing Phoebe, he didn't scream. He didn't cry and demand a divorce. He didn't grab a kitchen knife and threaten her to choose between her family and her precious junior. He just stared at her with a gaze so cold it felt like looking at a corpse. Phoebe's rage instantly evaporated. Her beautiful eyes darted away, flashing with a brief moment of guilt. Remembering something, she nervously reached into her designer bag and pulled out a brand new camera, offering it to him with a gentle smile. Kyle, look, this is the new model you've wanted for so long, and I know you want to get back into photography. I already submitted your portfolio to the International Lens Competition. My dad stared at it with zero emotion. There was not a single trace of joy on his face. I recognized it immediately. It was the camera my dad had kept saved in his online cart for 2 years. To pay the household bills, he had refused to buy it. When he finally swallowed his pride and asked Phoebe for it, she blew him off, again and again. What Phoebe didn't know was that the model she just bought was already outdated. My dad had already purchased the newest one himself. Watching his abnormal reaction, Phoebe's eyebrows knit together. She let out a long sigh, pressing the camera into his hands with a patronizing, indulgent tone. All right, honey, it is my fault. I know you've been heartbroken since Noah passed away, and I shouldn't have argued with you. Just be patient, okay? Things with Oliver are almost settled. Just give me a little more time. A little more time. I clenched my tiny fists, looking at my mom with a breaking heart. 2 months. My mom was a liar. She had said that exact phrase 52 times, and she never kept her word. My dad waited for her. He waited while my little brother coded in the emergency room. He waited while his clinical depression spiraled so badly he started self-harming. He waited until he was completely broken, and she still never came home. Instead, she would just scold him over the phone. Kyle, I told you. She is my late mentor's child. Oliver is my junior. Stop being so incredibly insecure. Right then, Phoebe's ringtone pierced the quiet room. She quickly answered it on speakerphone. A little girl's desperate sobbing echoed through our apartment. Auntie Phoebe, come back. Daddy's head is burning up, and he collapsed on the floor. He won't wake up. Then, a man's weak, scolding voice came through the line. Sophie, why did you call her? We cannot keep burdening her. I scowled, opening my mouth to scream. That is not your mom. She is my mom. But Phoebe's eyes instantly went red. Her voice trembled with sheer panic. Oliver, what are you talking about? I would beg you to burden me for the rest of my life. She frantically threw the expensive camera onto the sofa. Kyle, Oliver might have overworked himself. I need to go check on him. I will explain everything later. Phoebe ran out the door without looking back. My dad and I stood there, staring at the empty doorway. We both knew she was not coming back tonight. My dad picked up the camera she left behind and turned it on. The memory card was full of photos. Phoebe, Oliver, and Sophie, smiling at theme parks, eating at expensive restaurants. I saw a photo of Phoebe and Sophie laughing on a Ferris wheel. The timestamp was the exact same day my little brother died in the hospital. I saw a photo of them watching a beautiful fireworks display. That was the night my dad had a depressive episode and ended up bleeding in the bathtub. My chest hurt so badly I couldn't breathe. I burst into tears. Mom always had time. She just never gave any of it to us. My dad's entire body shook. He pulled me into his arms, his voice hoarse but terrifyingly resolute. Jessica, Mommy is dead, right? I nodded my head vigorously. Something permanently shifted behind my dad's eyes. He stood up, grabbed the camera, and hurled it violently against the wall. Crash! The expensive device shattered into 100 plastic and glass pieces. I knew his heart had just shattered exactly the same way. That night, right before I fell asleep, I heard my dad talking on the phone in the dark. The lead photographer position in Los Angeles. I accept. I will be there in exactly 7 days. Through my sleepy haze, I suddenly remembered something. My dad used to be a globally renowned photographer. Every time he released a print, billionaires and celebrities would get into bidding wars over it. but he gave up his entire reputation for Phoebe, hiding in New York, working a miserable, underpaid job where his boss treated him like garbage. I couldn't help but smile into my pillow. In 7 days, my shining, brilliant dad was coming back. 5 days until we leave. I walked into the apartment after school and heard a massive clatter. Phoebe, who hadn't been home in 2 days, was holding all the trophies and medals my dad and I had won. She was tossing them into a cardboard moving box. The princess dresses my dad saved up to buy me, and my limited edition dolls were all being stuffed into the box without a second thought. My brain short-circuited. I looked nervously at my dad. His face was frozen in absolute disgust. His fists were shaking at his sides. Phoebe, are you even human? You don't come home to see your own daughter for 2 days, and the first thing you do is steal her things to give to that parasite and his kid? Phoebe didn't even look guilty. She casually inspected one of my gold medals, a dismissive smile on her lips. Kyle, I don't want to do this either. But if you hadn't posted those passive-aggressive photos on Facebook, Oliver and Sophie wouldn't be so depressed right now. Besides, Jessica is incredibly spoiled. What is the big deal about giving some toys to a child who doesn't even have a mother? My dad let out a dark, breathless laugh. His eyes instantly turned red with overwhelming disappointment. I never showed off. Only a filthy mind sees filth in everything. Jessica and I worked hard for those trophies. While you were busy playing house with another man and his daughter, did you ever stop to think about your own child? I stood there, completely numb, unable to understand why my mom had turned into this monster. A year ago, when my dad and I wanted a specific type of traditional pastry, Phoebe drove 300 miles just to learn how to bake it for us. Now, she was ripping our achievements off the walls to give to strangers. My dad took a deep breath. He seemed to see right through her. He pulled out his phone and sent a voice memo to a local journalist who had been begging for an interview. Mr. Davis, I accept your offer for the Champion Father and Daughter feature interview. Tomorrow morning at 7, 302 Silver Lake Drive. Kyle, what the hell are you doing? Phoebe lunged forward and snatched the phone out of his hand. My dad tilted his head, looking down at her like she was a pathetic bug. If they want the Champions trophies, they better be ready to play the part. As long as Oliver and his kid can handle a live press interview about winning these awards, they can keep them. Phoebe ground her teeth together, letting out a furious laugh. Do you really have to make things this ugly? Kyle, what happened to you? You used to be so generous. So understanding. She suppressed her temper, shooting a dark glare at the movers she had hired, ordering them to take the last box away. Before walking out the door, she gave my dad a look of sheer, unadulterated disappointment. I am just borrowing them to cheer Sophie up. I will bring them back when we are done. Call the journalist and cancel it right now. Used to be? I stared at my sneakers, my chest aching. My mom used to be different too. You are not taking a single thing out of this house. My dad started. Daddy! I yelled, cutting him off. I turned to Phoebe and gave her a sweet, obedient smile, shaking my head. It is okay, Daddy. I don't want them anymore. Let Mommy give them to my new sister. A flash of joy crossed Phoebe's eyes. She walked over and patted my head, completely oblivious. See? Our Jessica is such a good, mature girl. After she left, I looked at the empty, stripped living room. I walked over to my piggy bank, pulled out a $10 bill, and took my dad's hand. His eyes were completely bloodshot. We walked downstairs to the college student living on the second floor. Excuse me, miss? Can I give you $10 to be my mom for tonight? It is my daddy's birthday. The girl looked at us, her voice thick with pity. Did Phoebe? She's dead. My dad and I said it at the exact same time. The girl seemed to understand immediately. She followed us back to our apartment. While I was singing happy birthday, right before my dad blew out the candles, his phone lit up with a notification. My dad stiffened. His fingers trembled as he opened it. I peeked at the screen, and the blood in my veins turned to absolute ice. Oliver had updated his social media. The caption read, "Whenever I get angry and break things, she never gets annoyed. She just smiles and hands me more to throw." The attached photo showed my dad's and my trophies shattered into 100 pieces on their marble floor. My limited edition dolls, the ones I loved so much I barely even took them out of the box, had their faces violently scribbled over with black permanent marker. Ping. Phoebe sent a message. It was a money transfer for $50,000. My dad tapped the voice memo underneath it. Through the speaker, we could hear the chaotic sound of glass shattering in the background. Kyle, there was a little accident with the trophies. Just take the money and buy Jessica some new ones. Stop making a big deal out of nothing. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. But Mom, money can't buy the love Daddy and I put into winning those. My dad squeezed his eyes shut. He immediately took a screenshot of the post and forwarded it to his lawyer. Mr. Davis, these are photos proving Phoebe's long-term infidelity with Oliver, along with the massive financial transfers she has been making to him. All the evidence is there. Fast-track the divorce proceedings. My dad didn't reply to Phoebe for the rest of the night. Her phone calls came in back-to-back, ringing endlessly. Kyle, I am sorry I forgot your birthday. Okay? Kyle, why aren't you accepting the transfer? Why are you throwing another tantrum? Are you out of your mind? The journalist actually showed up at Oliver's house this morning. Do you have any idea how humiliated they were? Are you happy now? My dad read the frantic texts lighting up his screen. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't shed a
3 days until we leave. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in years, there were no messages from Phoebe lighting up my dad's phone. No accusations. No guilt trips. No promises of a little more time. She was blocked. Gone. Dead. At least to us. Dad spent the next 2 days packing. Not the furniture. Not the expensive things Phoebe had bought. Just the things that mattered. Noah's favorite stuffed dinosaur. The last drawing he made before he got sick. The tiny blue hospital bracelet Dad had kept hidden in a box. Every time he touched one of Noah's things, his hands shook. But he never cried. I think he'd already cried all the tears he had. The night before our flight, The doorbell rang. Dad opened the door. Phoebe stood outside. She looked awful. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles beneath her eyes. For a second, nobody spoke. Then she forced a smile. Kyle. Dad stared. Why are you here? The smile immediately cracked. I've been trying to reach you for days. You succeeded. Phoebe froze. What? Dad looked at her calmly. You reached me. I'm telling you to leave. For the first time, genuine panic flashed across her face. Her eyes darted around the apartment. The empty shelves. The packed boxes. The missing photos. The suitcases. Kyle. Her voice became shaky. What is all this? We're moving. The color drained from her face. Moving where? Los Angeles. The silence that followed felt endless. Then she laughed. A nervous, disbelieving laugh. Stop joking. Dad didn't answer. Phoebe's smile disappeared completely. You're serious? Yes. You can't just take Jessica. I can. I'm her mother. Dad's eyes turned cold. No. The single word hit harder than a scream. No mother abandons her son while he's dying. Phoebe staggered backward. Noah. No. Dad cut her off. You don't get to say his name. The words sliced through the room. Phoebe burst into tears. For the first time. Actual tears. Not anger. Not manipulation. Not self-pity. Just tears. I didn't know it was that bad. Dad laughed. The sound was terrifying. You didn't know because you didn't care enough to find out. Phoebe opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words came out. Because there weren't any. How do you explain missing your son's final moments because you were riding a Ferris wheel? How do you explain ignoring hundreds of calls from your husband while he sat beside a dying child? How do you explain choosing another family over your own? You don't. You can't. Dad handed her an envelope. She looked down. Her hands began trembling. Divorce papers. The official filing. Her signature line waiting at the bottom. Phoebe stared. Then stared harder. As if looking long enough would somehow change reality. You filed. 3 days ago. Her knees almost gave out. You weren't supposed to. Dad blinked. Weren't supposed to what? Give up on me. The room fell silent. Dad looked at her for a very long time. Then he said the cruelest thing I'd ever heard. I gave up on you the day Noah died. Phoebe stopped breathing. I think something inside her broke. Because suddenly she wasn't crying anymore. She was just staring. Empty. Lost. Like someone had switched off the lights behind her eyes. She finally understood. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a rough patch. This wasn't another argument she'd smooth over with promises. She had actually lost us. For real. Forever. A tiny sound escaped her throat. Kyle. Dad gently closed the door. In her face. The last thing I saw was my mother standing alone in the hallway. Looking smaller than she'd ever looked before. The next morning, Dad and I boarded our flight. As the plane lifted into the clouds, I looked out the window. New York became smaller. 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 Until it disappeared completely. Dad reached over and squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. For the first time since Noah died, he smiled. A real smile. Not a fake one. Not a broken one. A genuine smile. And I knew. We weren't running away. We were finally going home. Meanwhile, back in New York, Phoebe walked into Oliver's apartment. For the first time, she noticed things she'd ignored for years. The expensive gifts she bought. The vacations she paid for. The rent she covered. The designer clothes. The private school tuition. Millions of dollars. All from her. Oliver smiled when he saw her. Phoebe, you're finally. Did you love me? He froze. What? Answer me. The smile disappeared. And in that single second, Phoebe got her answer. No. He never had. She had been a wallet. A caretaker. A replacement. A convenient source of endless support. Nothing more. The fantasy she'd built her entire life around collapsed instantly. Weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Phoebe lost nearly everything. The court records. The financial transfers. The public humiliation. The journalist's story. The the social media evidence. It all came out. And while she still had money, she no longer had a family. Years later, when people asked her biggest regret, she always gave the same answer. Not the money, not the divorce, not the scandal, not even losing Kyle. It was a little boy named Noah. A little boy who spent his final hours waiting for his mother to come home. A mother who never came. And by the time she finally realized what she'd thrown away, the people who loved her most had already buried her in their hearts. Epilogue Phoebe. 5 years later. I still wake up every morning at 6:17. Because that's the exact time the hospital called. The exact time they told me Noah's condition had suddenly worsened. The exact time I silenced the call. I remember everything now. Every detail. Every excuse. Every lie. Back then, I told myself I had reasons. Oliver needed me. Sophie needed me. Kyle was being dramatic. Noah would recover. There would always be tomorrow. 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 The most expensive word I have ever spoken. Because eventually tomorrow stopped coming. I sit alone in a luxury penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The apartment is worth millions. The view is breathtaking. The silence is unbearable. A framed photo sits on my desk. Not a real one. A copy. The original is gone. It shows Kyle holding Jessica on his shoulders while Noah laughs beside them. I am not in the picture. I stare at it every day. Sometimes for hours. The family I destroyed. The family I traded away. The family that continued without me. The first year after the divorce, I convinced myself they would come back. Jessica would eventually miss her mother. Kyle would calm down. Time would heal everything. I sent gifts. They were returned. I sent letters. No reply. I called. Blocked. I flew to Los Angeles. Their lawyer met me instead. The message was short. Please stop. Nothing else. Not a single word from Kyle. Not a single word from my daughter. That was when I finally understood. I hadn't lost a marriage. I had lost access to the people I loved. There was a difference. A terrible difference. The marriage ended because of my choices. The relationship ended because of theirs. And they had every right. I still remember the first time I saw Jessica again. 3 years after the divorce. Pure coincidence. I was attending a photography exhibition. Kyle's exhibition. Of course it was. His name was everywhere now. The world-famous photographer had returned. Billionaires bought his work. Celebrities fought over invitations to his galleries. Every article called his comeback miraculous. None of them knew the truth. The truth was that Kyle had stopped carrying dead weight. I saw Jessica across the room. She was taller. Older. Beautiful. She had Noah's smile. For one stupid second, my heart soared. I started walking toward her. My daughter. My little girl. Then she looked at me. And froze. There was no excitement. No happiness. No love. Only polite recognition. The same look you give a stranger you've met before. My chest collapsed. Jessica. My voice shook. She nodded. Hello, Miss Phoebe. Miss Phoebe. Not mom. Not mother. Not even Phoebe. Just a title. Like we were coworkers. I think I died a little in that moment. Before I could speak again, Kyle appeared beside her. He looked exactly the same. No, that wasn't true. He looked happy. The old Kyle had constantly worried about everyone else. This Kyle stood straight. Confident. Peaceful. Alive. He put an arm around Jessica's shoulders. Not possessively. Protectively. The way he always had. For a moment our eyes met. 5 years ago I would have seen anger. 5 years ago I would have seen heartbreak. Now? Nothing. There was nothing left. No love. No hate. No resentment. No grief. I had become irrelevant. Somehow that hurt more than hatred ever could. Because hatred means you still matter. I didn't. Kyle simply nodded politely. The same way he might acknowledge a cashier. Then he walked away with our daughter. And I stood there. Alone. Watching them disappear into the crowd. Just like they had disappeared from my life. A few months later I visited Noah's grave. I do it every year now. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every anniversary. I bring flowers. I talk to him. I apologize. I know he can't hear me. Maybe the apologies are really for myself. This year I sat beside the headstone until sunset. The wind was cold. The cemetery was empty. Eventually, I whispered the question that has haunted me for years. What would have happened if I came home that day? The answer arrived immediately. Not from Noah. From my own heart. Everything. Everything would have been different. Kyle would still have smiled when he saw me. Jessica would still have called me Mom. Noah might have died anyway. Or maybe he wouldn't have. I will never know. That's the punishment. Not knowing. Living another 40 years wondering. I placed my hand on the stone. My son. The words cracked apart. My baby. For years I thought losing Kyle was my greatest regret. I was wrong. My greatest regret was believing I had more time. More time to be a mother. More time to be a wife. More time to come home. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Darkness slowly covered the cemetery. I stood up. Nobody was waiting for me. Nobody would ask where I'd been. Nobody would call tonight. There was no family dinner. No husband. No children. No home. Only an empty penthouse filled with expensive furniture and ghosts. As I walked away, my eyes lingered on Noah's name one final time. Then I smiled sadly. Because after all these years, I finally understood something. The day Kyle and Jessica declared me dead, they weren't being cruel. They were simply announcing my funeral long before I bothered to notice I was gone.